to me, Peter. It's nice meeting you once again.
Yeah.
It's nice having you crossing. Actually, read your book. You're a fantastic writer. To be honest, I must commend you for your books.
Thank you so much.
Let's go straight to the questions.
Yeah.
First, the question I would like to ask you is, are you a poet?
Yeah. I'm a poet, but I love to think of myself as a philosopher. I love to think of myself as a thinker and, a basic writer of poems. I actually love writing poetry. I love putting my words together. And I'm a lover of poetry. I love putting my thoughts down in words. I love writing, things that I just think that most people need to hear about. And I just love poetry generally. And as such, I love to say, yes, I am a poet.
I read one of your books, right?
Yeah.
That whose fault, Kismet or Impediment.
Absolutely.
That book is awesome, to be very honest, because when I was reading the book, it was kind of reflecting my soul, my body, and my spirit.
Wow.
I would like to ask, are you a spiritual writer, or you just felt you need to involve human in the spiritual part of life?
Well, answering the question if I'm a spiritual writer, it would be a hard one to answer. But, I would just love to say that I'm a kind of writer that loves talking about different kind of themes. And as at this, it's spiritual. And, readers will be able to say, oh, is he a spiritual writer or stuff? Well, I'd love to say that I wouldn't love to call myself a spiritual writer per se. But, there are some themes that I talk about that might be spiritual. There are some things that I talk about that might be a bit biblical in themes. And, I just love to write down words as they come to me, as I've seen them, as I've heard them, and based on some things that have been mystically revealed unto me. So I wouldn't really love to call myself much of a spiritual writer, but I'm just a writer of poetry. I'm a poet, and a poet can actually write based on different themes, which of course can be spiritual.
Okay, can you tell me what your first book was?
Yes, my first book, Ecstasy of the Dead, was published in 2020. That was my first work. It's like a collection of poems that are theoretical, they're impulsive, and they're existence-centered. It's something that talk about depression, about hope, about the mystery of the afterlife, about vanity, and quite a lot of other themes encapsulated in it. So in the book, I actually did not have a particular theme or title or subject that I've decided to talk about. It's basically a collection of different poems that I've written over the years of being a poet, and I just put them together. Unlike in my other books like Fate in the Dungeon of Doom, Whose Fault, and other books so far, whereby I have a particular theme to expand each book. So Ecstasy of the Dead is more or less like the kind of poetry that has quite a lot of things that I think everybody will actually resonate with. And again, there are some bits of essays towards the ending part of the book. It's like of 2 sections. So it's more or less like a theoretical collection of poems that talk about the human condition, quite a lot of themes in it.
That's great. Well, I'd like to ask though, when you were writing your journey as a writer, as an author, what problems or challenges do you encounter when it comes to putting words together to form a book? Okay, and what do you have apart from the challenges? Do you have other things in common that came together to give you a hard time when you were writing your book, and what actually inspired you?
Well, I don't have a hard time writing poetry so far. They're actually something that comes to me very easily. That's something that comes to me based on my imagination. I can just sit down and the word just come to my ear. And I'll be like, okay, Peter, it's high time, pick a pen and start writing. I can be anywhere and the word just come to me. That's why I love walking wherever I go with my phone or at least a pen. So I can jot down whatsoever come to me at that point. Because if you refuse the voice coming to you at that time, it might leave and you won't get to hear the word. So writing poem was actually a very easy thing to me. I don't think I have any challenge with that. The only challenge would have to be time compiling the works together, time getting it published, and the reality of the fact that you need to put it out there so that a lot of people can actually hear in terms of marketing. So that's one of the things that I think. I don't have any other challenge apart from that so far in terms of writing and the expression to which I got it.
Well, I think that we have a lot of people out there seeing this. And also, on that question is, I was reading the Kismet, Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment. I love thing got to me actually, that I got a lot of questions. The first question just on the book is, you were talking about obstacles in the book, things that stop a man from achieving success and stuff like that. Why do you think a man can achieve success and another man cannot? Why do you think obstacle is the one stopping a man from achieving something? Do you think there are other forces attached to it, or do you just think, okay, let me just agree that it's obstacles?
Well, the topic or the subject of obstacle itself is a hard one to tackle. It's a hard one to point a finger and say, okay, this is the real cause, or this is the role it has come to play. And, just as it is in the book, it's part of my contemplation to get to know what role obstacle have come to play in the life of a man, and why, a man would have obstacle in a hard manner, and another one will have it swiftly and easily. Why some people are able to navigate through their obstacles and just find a pathway to whatsoever they want to get. And with other people, it's very hard. It is difficult. It is so wrenching. And they are often stuck with the image of committing suicide, of dying before their time, of, doing quite a lot of things. Like we actually see in the world today, a lot of people, just because they're tired of life, they have a lot of problems they're facing through. This is what I actually want to talk about in Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment. And asking the question why people have obstacles in a hard way and some other people have it in his ways is a difficult one to answer, because I think that we human beings, we all have different things that we actually face and experience, and there's a different way with which everybody navigate through it. And that's why I'd written Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment, with the intention to demystify the sort of relationship that exists between human fate and obstacle, to know if obstacle is a making of God or some anonymous force that is resting against man, and to know if obstacle is the making of God himself or some other things that are human oriented, some things, delays caused by human being himself. So all of this is what I attempt to demystify and to bring hope, to communicate love and the reality that you are not alone to anybody out there who is being struck by the unseen force of impediment. I love to put it that way.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Yeah.
In your book, what do you mean by near success syndrome?
Yes, that's a word I think I mentioned in one of the succeeding poem. I've forgotten what part it was mentioned itself. So what I mean by near success syndrome is more or less like, something like a phenomenon that gets a man stuck at the edge of breakthrough. And I think there's a particular poem with which I'd mention it. So what I actually mean by near success syndrome is a situation whereby a man gets stuck while he's yet, in the brink of achieving success or getting something out of his own life, something like that.
All right, thank you for that. Do you think obstacles can be an entity that's affecting, that is causing near success syndrome?
Yes, I think both of them they relate together, and looking at obstacle as an entity would be a hard one to actually propose it to be, because we cannot. It's like an unseen stuff. It's like obstacle is more or less like impediment, and with everybody it differs from one life to another. And I wouldn't love to think of it as an entity that goes together with near success syndrome, but on the same level, both of them seems to have the same meaning. They seems to work together. They're like sons of the same mother or father.
Thank you for that, Peter. Another question is, what part of a man's life do you think should start experiencing success?
Well, success depends on everyone's perception. There is no per se point in life that you said, okay, there's a point whereby a man has started experiencing success. Everybody have their own definition of success. So a man, success can be him being able to find daily meal, being able to eat in the morning, afternoon, and night. And so some other people, they can consider success as good health. Other people think of success as fame, as prosperity, as riches, as wealth, and all of that. And a lot of people actually think of success as academic progress, PhD stuff, etc. So we all have our own understanding of what we consider success, and to everybody it might actually differ. So I wouldn't love to say per se that this is at the point of a man's life that I started experiencing success. It depends on you to say, oh yes, I'm successful. Then someone asks you, are you successful? Then you can go ahead and tell them how you're successul.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions raised in your book, Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment.
Yeah.
Part of it was a part you wrote in the poem. The obstacles that precedes fate. One, what do you mean by that? Secondly, there is a failure that is connected to our destiny.
Yeah.
Okay, and many other ideas that you brought up about the relationship between human fate and obstacles. I'm curious to hear from you. How realistic is this? Do you think obstacles and destiny have some things in common? Do you think they work together?
Well, looking into obstacles, you see, that's just like my queries, because I love asking questions more than I give answers to them in form of poetry. And all of that is what I just wish to know, if what connection exists between human fate and obstacle. If it's something that actually work together. And, obstacle is actually like a very typical thing that I think is particular to everybody on earth. I don't know, but I've not come to the ear of the man. I've not seen the man who has not experienced obstacle in his life in one way or the other, irrespectively. And it's just part of my long-haired intuition, long-haired questions about the reality, what role obstacle has come to play in the life of a man. What should a man do when he's fixed with chronic obstacles, and how he tends to react to it. And one of the messages I seem to communicate there is to allow man to have a different perception of obstacle. There's some point whereby I rebuked obstacle. There's some point whereby I wrote in a poem titled Thanks to Obstacle, of the need of appreciation for a man to know that, okay, despite all that happened, I think then it's not going to stop me in realizing whatsoever you've come on earth to achieve your purpose and everything. So in Usfort, Kismet and Impediment, I was just kind of raising quite a lot of questions about to demystify the sort of realness between the human fate and obstacle, and that's actually led to quite a lot of difficult questions that sometimes whenever I read the book, I'm like, oh, Peter, did you really ask that question? It's such a hard one to answer.
Thank you much for that.
Yeah.
And back to the next question. We were talking about a foresight, about seeing how obstacles can lead us to success.
Yeah.
How do you think human can enhance that foresight?
Well, that foresight depends on your level of knowledge, your level of understanding. You see, more or less like being a Stoic, whereby you tend to just see things happen naturally. You want to take a flight and it's been delayed. Some people will be so nervous and tense, but you see another man so calm and quiet. It's all about your own ability to discern and foresee whatsoever happens. So, but I don't really think a man can actually have the foresight to discern the role that obstacle has come to play in their life, because obstacle always come in a tragic manner. So obstacle has a very typical characteristics, a feature that makes a man to shed tears, a feature that makes you leave you emotional, leave you despondent, and leave you in a very typical situation. So at that point, having the foresight to know if this obstacle has good thing meant for you in the future, you wouldn't know it. Even the emotion of obstacle itself is something that you cannot really give a say and said, okay, this is what role it has come to play in a life. And that's why I'd love to just make it seems that way, and to talk about that itself, I cannot really give a say or deduction about that.
Thank you for that question. That really helped this stuff.
Yeah.
So on that question is, in your book you were talking about the world and how the world has come to do things that are not supposed to be. And you're talking about how the world is a vanity, how we came into the world and we can't uphold stuff and we can't uphold anything to take it to the afterlife.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask as a personal question, what goes through your mind when you know the world is vanity, and why do you chase after success and accumulate wealth when you know you won't take anything to the afterlife?
Yeah, now that goes back to the source of my questions on obstacle. And part of it is that, okay, if obstacle has come to stop us, and even though obstacle leave and we get to achieve whatsoever we've got to achieve all our desires or all your stuff that are being met, then at the end of everything, a man dies. Then what's the real point? But looking at it that way, we don't say that we shouldn't, accumulate wealth, knowing that, we'll die someday. Of course, we have to accumulate wealth and, just go ahead. It's all about the path of life. And giving a say particularly about that would be a hard one to crack. So talking about vanity and the fact that, obstacle comes, and to know if a man should accumulate wealth, despite the fact that he knows that he will die someday. Obstacle is something that has come to show a man the way. Some actually comes to show a man the way. And that's why I wrote in one of the quotes that I have in the book that, when obstacles come, it's good for a man to have the discernment to be able to embrace it and take it irrespective of what emotion it has come with. We actually have a lot of difficult life issues that I cannot be mentioning because everybody have their own in a different ways. And I cannot be actually making instance like I cease from giving example in the book. I always love to do away with example in my book because in order to make the readers feel it and apply it to their life and relate it to whatsoever that they are passing through.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, okay, through your book, right, you're like preaching to your readers that the world is actually a bad place to live, right? Yes, you're like mentioning that the world, people can kill themselves in times to come because the world has been a very bad human influence.
Yeah.
A bad place to live. Do you think you're writing or as a writer, do you think your writing will influence the world in a positive way?
Yes, I've come to think of it that there are quite a lot of evil in the world today. There are quite a lot of, silly things going on in the world today. There are quite a lot of indulgence, don't really observe ethics, the war, quite a lot of things. The lists are endless. And I've come to think of it that all of these are actually human-oriented. They're actually human-made. The annihilation of one man to another man. The way with which human beings enact wickedness towards another man, and as such, they are passive. I think that was mentioned in A World of Another World. That reminds me of the poem actually asking that from. So it's more or less like I was talking about the situation of the world and how we human beings have come to make it a terrible place to live in because of one-to-one activities, because of the way with which we relate to one another. I feel that there are quite a lot of evil things to talk about. There are quite a lot of silly things out there to talk about, and also to question the nature of the human person. Because we human, we're unpredictable. A man can be good today and suddenly turns evil tomorrow. It's all of that leads to my contemplation in the poem A Word for Another Word.
Right, great. Thank you so much for the question. Another question I have for you is, we were talking about the bad head in the last two points.
Yeah.
We're talking about the bad head, and anyone with the bad head have no conscience.
Absolutely.
Doing evil things and all.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think we can do to cap out all this kind of stuff all over the world and control this stuff? Because we have to make the world a better place for us to live and the upcoming generations. And also, you're talking about this generation that we are and the upcoming one. This generation is breeding the new generation.
Absolutely.
What we do here, the upcoming
influence the future
is going to meet.
Absolutely.
So what do you think we can do? What your point as a writer? What do you think you can pitch to your readers and tell them that, okay, this is what we can do to make the world a better place?
Well, it's all about passing information. It's all about passing ethics and letting people know that this is the right and this is the wrong. It's a kind of a way with which we can judge between good and evil and kind of preach the message that this is what we should do. Because, I'm a kind of person that loves to think of it. If the world can actually be a very good place to live in. There's a poem I wrote about that. I forgot the title itself, where I was kind of giving a contemplation of if everybody on the earth can actually be without sin. I think I've forgotten the poem currently, but I was kind of making contemplation. If the world can live without sin, then it could have been a very great place to live in. But then at the same time, I was asking that, is it ever possible for we to stay without sin? I think I put up that question on social media. Some people said, oh, it will be very boring. People said, oh, no, it won't be fine. That's some people, let me use it that way, not human being generally. They kind of love the fact that, sin exists, and some evil things exist in the world today. And, all of this is actually part of my contemplation. I think that if we keep communicating ethics, if we keep communicating morals, because it's actually something I love talking about in poetry, looking into the place where I grew up, the society, the way things are in Nigeria today, and the killings, the annihilation of someone who just wake up and kill another person without conscience, without the feeling of, realization that what you've done is wrong. And I just come to think of it that how can somebody just do this without having a human feeling? So all of this is something that I think if we keep spreading the message, the information, that the ethical information, the moral information, then our generation will get to learn from us in future time and tend to walk based on the path that we've laid. So it's more or less like we are building a monument for our children to lay and take over from.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
In your book, you were trying to tell your readers that they should have hope, even though there's no, they feel there's not going to be hope at all. They should just have a little hope and hope that everything's going to work out for them.
Yeah.
Okay, you were like telling us that everything is going to be fine, even though obstacles is going to come once in one's way, right? And though people pray to God for answers, like they pray to God for solutions to their life.
Yeah.
Why do you think, I'm not like trying to question you because you're God, I'm trying to question you because you wrote the book.
Yeah.
Right? Why do you think whenever people pray about canceling obstacles or about against obstacles in their life, some people get the answers as soon as possible than others? Some will pray to God and they'll stay out of the obstacle. Do you think this has to do with their faith or how their life has been programmed?
Now again, that's a difficult one to answer because I cannot really give a say of all of this. You see what, I love asking questions because I'm a philosophical being. And as such, some of the questions I cannot really provide an answer to. Though I can give an idea, I can give a guesswork. I guess, okay, it might be because of this, it might be because of that. Everybody pray to God, and with the fact that some prayers have been answered and another one is not answered, that's not my business. So I don't really...
Yeah, I'm actually asking you because everybody pray to God for
yeah, absolutely. I understand what you're trying to come with.
Obstacles, your book was very spiritual.
Yeah.
It is so personal. It's like when you're reading the book, you feel, wow, this person is actually writing this poem to me, right? So I'm trying to ask that, okay, actually, personally, everybody's feeling as one you choose or the other.
Absolutely.
When we pray against this issue, what do you think? What do you think? Okay, for example, right? If I pray against something, right, and I'm not getting answers for that thing, what do you think I should do? Okay,
well, I would just love to put it this way, because all of this is also a part to faith, and the fact that some issues stays irrespective. I think I understand where your question is coming from, because I remember talking about that. Some people can pray to even in the gate of hell and pray, and at least everything, nothing changes. Well, I think all of this, it works with faith. It works with predetermination, because there's some things that will stay irrespective of whatsoever a man tries. And in all of this actually have to do with faith, because destiny works with time. Yeah, so a man whose time is being wasted with a partial of his destiny being wasted, and a man who have things in time, like things come to him in time, he achieves some certain things in time, can say, oh yes, he's in good timing with faith. But the fact that some get answered and all that tarries, it's a difficult one to tackle, because we are not God. We can't really know why things are like this, and that's why sometimes we tend to leave it by asking questions. Want to know that why are things like this? Why did it happen this way? Why is it that despite the fact that all of this happened and I did this, I did that, it still remains? Just like the tone of the narrator in the book, which is very, very full of agony, was asking quite a lot of questions in the beginning part of the book. I remember the poem titled like a snatched destiny, and some other kind of poems like Whose Fault, Fate or Mine, where quite a lot, why the narrator is asking quite a lot of questions. And at the end, the ending part of the book instead, it's also providing answers, trying to guess, maybe, okay, I never knew that this obstacle is part of my life. No wonder I had it this way. I never knew that this obstacle has come to prepare me for a better place. No wonder I had it this way. Had I known, I wouldn't have cried or shed tears when I was being beset with those obstacles. Really, I kind of really pointed out and said, okay, this is why some have been answered and this is why others are not being answered, because nobody actually knows why things happened. Nobody actually, even the best of seers cannot really give a say or give a particular description of why some certain things happen and why other things do not happen. And that's also part of my contemplation, why some people have obstacle the hard way and some people just have it easily. But despite the fact of everything, everybody have a point in time whereby they're being beset with obstacle. The obstacle of Mr. A could differ from another person. Some people can have it earlier in their life, while some other people have it in a later time. So all of this is something that you cannot even give a say or a particular idea and say, okay, this is the real point or this is the real cause of this obstacle, and this is the role it has come to play in the life of a man.
All right, thank you so much. For the last question I'm asking today, what will you tell the readers out there that are depressed, that have issues with their life, and do you think your book will bring peace to their depressed life or stuff? And do you understand your book made people to question things that are not supposed to be questioned?
Yeah, sure. For readers out there who are questioning whatsoever, who have been through quite a lot of things, let them get a copy of Usfort, Kismet, Impediment. Let them go and see and explore and get to understand and read from the pain of a terrible narrator. Then put themselves together and listen to the story of the narrator in Usfort, Kismet, Impediment, and see if they can actually find hope for themselves, if they can find peace to their troubled soul, if they can find enlightenment and encouragement despite whatsoever they are being through. And there are a lot of hope in the book. There are a lot of peace in the book. There are a lot of message in the book that I believe, not even think, everybody will be able to relate to. Everybody will be able to find pleasure in. Everybody will be able to find something that persists to their life in there. And it's going to speak to quite a lot of people, because obstacle is a part of life. Everybody would have it in one way or the other, irrespective of whatsoever you have or wherever you have your personality. Obstacle is no respecter of personality. So it's something that comes and everybody have it in different way. And it's a part of life. It's a nature that cannot really be explained on itself. And it's something that everybody has got to suck from. So it's part of it. It's part of life.